Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 6, 2014, exactly 9 o'clock, and we're gathered for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting in the Senator Hearing Room, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street in Salem. We start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our first item is always, well, that isn't on this agenda, but I know public comment is the first item. And we have someone to speak. David Beam, if you'd like to come up and tell us something about Marion County healthcare funding. And pull that microphone right up if you would, David.
Okay. Commissioners, we need funding for mentally ill people living in the middle of the streets. So I was wondering if we can get mentally ill funding for a drop-in center for the mentally ill and disabled people in Marion County, because we need the funding, because a lot of them are living in the streets that don't got nowhere else to go. So I think we need to do it. I'm asking for $60 million funding for that for Marion County Commissioners for get this going for all the disabled people and mentally ill people for Marion County for mental health programs. And I think that would be good for Salem area and for the county.
All right. Questions?
David, did you say 60 million?
60 million funding. And I was talking to Peter Courtney and he likes the idea.
So you're talking about the state?
Yeah,
putting
the state will pitch in.
more dollars and us supporting that. Okay.
Right.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, if the state wants to send it, I'm all for it. We do a lot anyway, I know that. I guess I could also say not enough. Kevin or Commissioner Cameron, you want to do the consent calendar, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the consent calendar. And first item is the Board of Commissioners OLCC application recommend approval to Urban Concessions, Inc., Sublimity, 2 locations. Vita Springs Vineyard, LLC, Mighty Fine Wine, in Salem. Next item is Business Services, Human Resources. Approve recommendation to adjust pay grade for Public Works Facility and Service District Supervisor. Approve under Human Services, approve recommendation to establish and adopt a new classification for Health Department courier. Under Community Services, approve an order appointing Stephen Thorsett and Linda Zeit as to the Marion County Children and Families Commission for a term ending August 31st, 2018. Also under Community Services, approve amendment number 3 to the contract for services with Job Growers, Inc. for $47,191.66 to provide workforce development services for low-income youth through August 31st, 2014. Under Health, approve the amendment number 1 and reinstate the contract for services with Salem Clinic PC for $12,500 and Willamette Family Medical Center for $12,500 to continue behavioral health consultation and specialized training through September 30th, 2014. Under the Sheriff, approve contract for services with Bridgeway Recovery Services for $85,361 to provide reentry initiative services. And finally, under Treasurer, approve an order distributing revenues from ORS Chapter 530 Timberlands.
All right, I'll second the motion. Any further discussion?
Not for me.
John, I know you haven't prepared you for this and you wouldn't know the answer off the top of your head, but just these timber monies, the total's like $16,000. Off the top of your head, do you know what an average would come in on those type of payments. It's directly for cutting in Marion County.
Yeah, but it goes to school.
Right, it's split up, but what is the amount that we get about 5,000, it said. You don't, maybe we'll look that up later then. All right, anything else? Gonna call a question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. The next item is an action item under Public Works. Consider adoption of an ordinance approving amendments to the Marion County floodplain overlay zones. This by emergency procedure. Brandon Reich is here. We've worked on it a few times, but for the sake of the public, would you tell us what we're doing here today?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Brandon Reich, staff representing the Planning Division of Public Works. The county is proposing to amend the Marion County floodplain overlay zones to amend the definitions of substantial damage and substantial improvement, to adopt exemptions to the regulations of the overlay zones, and to amend the urban code regarding structures exempt from requiring elevation certificates. On July 23rd, the board held a hearing on the matter. No persons testified at the hearing. After reviewing the record, the board voted unanimously to concur with the amendments to the floodplain overlay zones. Before you today is an ordinance reflecting that decision. In order that construction of any newly exempt activities can take place before the flood season begins, which starts in October, staff recommends that the ordinance be adopted by emergency procedure so that the exemptions go into effect upon adoption. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I think I've had it explained to me pretty thoroughly.
But Brandon, if you would then, just because I didn't hear what I was kind of looking for, I'm sorry, maybe
Sure.
you said it. So a house is damaged in a flood, and this would set parameters on when they must do work, when they can do work, what new codes they might have to follow. Could you just go through that a little bit more,
That's
please?
right, sure. When a house is damaged by any incident, like a flood or a fire, if the damage to the house, once these amendments go into place, the damage to the house exceeds 50% of the value of the home before the destruction occurred, then that home has to be brought up to current floodplain standards. So if necessary, the home has to be elevated to above the base flood elevation, and openings have to be installed in the home, with the idea that you put FEMA, that's a FEMA minimum requirement. And the idea is you're making the home safer from future flooding at the time you're putting in a substantial amount of money into the home, so that the money doesn't leave a home susceptible to still being damaged in the future.
And then under the old rules, then the number was more like 25%, as I recall.
Currently, the number is 20%. And that would change to
20%. So
50.
this was my key point, was you've had damage, it's already bad, and now here comes the county saying, oh, by the way, we're going to kick it up a notch, and now it's really bad. But at least this gives some option. I'm sure we're encouraging them to avoid the future problems, but won't be quite so heavy-handed and say you must if you want to rebuild.
Sure, and some homeowners, when they have that kind of damage and they get a loan to repair as well as maybe flood insurance, they want to go ahead and do some of the extra work to elevate the home. If you're already in the midst of doing major repair, it doesn't necessarily that difficult to go ahead and add that in. What we found in the past when we looked at the kind of developments that were occurring, improvements that were happening to homes, were that the majority of the improvements were either around 5 or 10%, or they're well over 100% the value of the home. We weren't really seeing improvements to homes, changes to homes in the 15, 20 to 80% range, anywhere in that area. So this change from 20 to 50 wouldn't have impacted the permits we've seen in the recent past. But going forward in the future, it'll give people the flexibility to be able to put improvements into their home without necessarily having to comply with current standards, which are more cost and maybe more time to do the improvement.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just say this gives Marion County citizens more flexibility and not forced into spending that money. I think that's a good thing. So, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that the chair read the action item twice, and that it's an emergency.
By title.
By title twice,
Okay.
due to emergency.
All right, I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to have chair read the ordinance by title only twice. Any further discussion? Hear any, call a question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, and I'll do that reading now. In the matter of an ordinance amending the Marion County Code, Title 16.19 Urban Zone Code, and Title 17.178 Rural Zone Code by amending provisions of the floodplain overlay zones and declaring an emergency. And the second time, in the matter of an ordinance amending Marion County Code, Title 16.19 Urban Zone Code, and Title 17.178 Rural Zone Code by amending provisions of the floodplain overlay zones and declaring an emergency. And now a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the ordinance of approving amendments to the Marion County floodplain overlay zones by emergency.
Second. Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve this ordinance on the floodplain overlay zones. Any further discussion? Hear any? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Brandon, for all your work as always.
Thank you.
Well, that was rather quick. It's the end of our action items. There's no public hearings this morning. So the last thing to do is read the places we'll be together in the coming week. And that starts out at noon in Woodburn at Woodburn Marion County meeting at Luis's Taqueria, 523 Front Street in Woodburn. That's from 12 to 1. That isn't, or it is open to the public if anybody'd like to join us. Thursday, 9:30 to 11:30, Department Head Elected Officials meeting. That'll be here in the Senator Hearing Room, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. That's followed at noon by a pretty important event in our area, the United Way Campaign Kickoff. And that'll be the Salem Conference Center, 200 Commercial Street Southeast in Salem. Monday, 8 o'clock till 3, Association of Oregon Counties Governance, the Legislative Committee and Board meeting, Local Government Center, 1201 Court Street in Salem. Tuesday, the 12th, 7:30 to 8:30, Staten Marion County meeting, Covered Bridge Cafe, 510 North 3rd in Staten. Wednesday, 7:30 to 9, Marion County Chief of Police meeting, McNary Golf Course Restaurant, 155 McNary Estates Drive North in Kaiser. You're going to get back in time for the board meeting, are you?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to try.
There'll be no speeding leaving there. All right. Then the board session at 9 o'clock here in the Senator Hearing Room, 555 Court Street in Salem. Wednesday the 13th, 3:30 to 5, EDAB, Economic Development Advisory Board, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Well, if somebody has anything else, do they?
Pretty day out there. It's cooler a little bit.
I think I could smell fall when I went out to get the paper. Yep, it's serious now.
Smell fish.
All right, anything else this morning? All right, let's
Thank you,
call this
Mr. Chair.
meeting adjourned.